Whereas if you have it at sternum height, there's two things. One, you can get under it and get set, and then you can kind of prep your body. You get really tight, you lift it up, and then you've got the weight. You get used to the weight, you allow your nervous system to get used to it, and then you can stand up and just walk back out of the rack. Okay, so you're going to decrease your risk of injury right there. So as soon as you've got to get it up and kind of tiptoe it and get it out off the rack, or if it's too low as well, and you've got to kind of do a good morning to get it up, you're going to increase your risk of injury. When we put it back, and this is a big one, I often see people, you know, they'll get to the rack and they'll kind of split their stance and they'll just try and get forward and rack it. Man, you just get that, if you've got a heavy weight, you just get it and just walk into the rack. So you walk in and down, boom, and you drive it into the rack as hard as you can. Try and knock the rack over, because you want to get it to that point where you just get rid of it safely. You don't want to be, if it's a heavy load, be kind of just trying to pop it into the rack. That's where you're going to get injured. So you drive it into the rack. Once it's on the rack, then you can come out of it. Okay?
Like a couple of people almost fuck themselves up because they look at one side.
Yep. Yep, totally. Yeah.
So I'm just like walking.
Yeah, and even if it's heavy and you walk it in high and then you've got to strip it and put it back down, man, you're better off doing that than being injured for 8 weeks with a buggered back, right? It'll take you 2 minutes to strip it and reset it, then 8 weeks of rehab, right? So these are like big things that I always see upstairs, and if I see that, I'll definitely make an effort to go and say to someone, because we want to look after our members, say, hey, look, I noticed you doing this. If you do this, you're going to decrease your risk of injury, and people really appreciate it. Cool? So that's racking without actually showing you guys the rack. Then there's bar setup. So there's a few different ways to do this, but this is the way I teach it. Like I said, there's no right or wrongs, but there are reasons for it, okay? So what I'll typically do with the bar is I'll grip it just outside shoulder width. The reason for that is because I'm going to hold it just outside shoulder width. Okay? If I had my hands shoulder width, my hands are going to get jammed in against my shoulders. Okay? So I'm going to go just outside shoulder width, and I know when I'm looking at the knurling, my hands are about 1 inch in from the knurling. Okay? If I get that up and over, and I sit that on my shoulders, so there's a few different things here. Like when we sort of categorize the back squat in terms of where the bar sits, we've got a high bar and a low bar, which would go even lower than that. Technically it would go like mid-scapular, and then we've just sort of got, you could say, neutral or mid-bar. But I would say, most people are going to go high bar, so it's going to sit just on top, sort of on the fleshy part, like on your upper traps. But you've got the spine of the scapula. Okay, so you guys know your scapular anatomy, all right? And then it's going to sit above the spine of the scapula, okay, for a high bar. And the high bar, if you were Olympic lifting, so say if you were doing Olympic lifting and you had front squats and you wanted to do back squats, a lot of Olympic lifters will use a high bar back squat because it's more similar to a front squat in terms of the load being higher up the trunk, having the trunk as a longer lever, versus when you do a low bar back squat, it creates a much shorter lever because I'm bringing the bar down closer to my hip, so the lever on my trunk is less. So that's going to allow me, power lifters, they'll use this low bar back squat because it allows them to lean forward more with the bar over the midfoot, and we'll get into that bar over the midfoot sort of stuff in a minute. But just in terms of a high bar or mid bar back squat, I'm going to sit here. Now you can see with my arms, like I can see in the mirror here, my forearms are vertical, okay? That allows me to pull the bar down into my shoulders And having my forearms vertical means I can just pull that bar straight down. If I'm like that, it's a bit harder to pull down and get leverage on the bar. Whereas if I'm in here, I can just pull the bar down into my shoulders. I want to make the bar a part of my body. So I want the bar to be part of me. I'm adding load. I just want the bar to be an extension of my body, okay? You can see from side on that the back of my wrists are flat. So I'm not like this. Someone with poor shoulder mobility will probably have to be like this or like this, okay? They won't be able to get back into that position. So my wrists are flat. Again, that allows me to pull down into my shoulders with good force, okay? If I'm like that, I can't really pull the bar down. So then all of a sudden I might have this heavy load on my back that's not really connected to my body. So I'm going to increase the risk of injury again, and I'm going to decrease the performance potential, okay? Then my chest is up. It doesn't have to be super high, like I just want to be tall. Flat wrists, I'm pulling that down, connecting it into my shoulders. That's how we set up. Cool?
Hey man, can I just jump in here real quick?
Yeah, man.
Something that I found out recently that helped me with my hand position, because I always found my hand position was like different. Because your lats are real important when you're squatting to help keep you upright. If you, with your clients or yourself, do a behind the head pull down and try a few hand positions and pull down behind your head and feel the hand position that you're getting the most lat activation, that's where you should have your hands when you squat, because then you'll get the best lat activation when you squat. Like some people will go and they go in real close because that feels tight, but they can't actually get their
elbows to pull down,
Go out a little bit, like sometimes it helps a little bit, because everyone's a little bit different.
Yeah, cool.
You can just have a go at that. Next time you're sitting up for a squat, just go behind the head, and that's one of the only times I recommend behind the head pull down.
Yeah, no, nice. So and that's the other thing. So for me, like I find that's spot on. But the only time when that might change is, like Tom says, everyone's different. So in terms of anthropometry, where that's like arm lengths, bone lengths, that sort of thing, everyone's different, right? So some people might have really long arms, or some people might have slightly shorter humerus and longer forearms, or some people might have longer humerus and shorter forearms. Some people have really long trunks, some people have short trunks. So one spot where you have to allow a bit of change is just individuality, okay? And it's like Tom said, if someone can, if their forearm's just out at 10 degrees, but they can really feel their lats squeezing and they're pulling the bar into, and they feel really strong there, and it looks good to you as a trainer, run with it, okay? But as long as you're around that vertical mark, or you're able to just get that pull down with the bar, that's the main thing, okay? Like Ray said, if someone can't get into that position, it's like this second resting position. We're not going to address that today, but it's going to be a mobility issue, right? What in terms of mobility in the shoulder or the spine is going to stop someone getting into that position? Yeah, what? So what's restrictive?
Anterior delts.
Yeah, so shoulder rotators. So what do I need to get to there? What movement?
External rotation.
External shoulder rotation, okay? Hey bro, what else do I need in terms of my spine?
Thoracic.
Yep, thoracic extension, just extension. What else?
Core stability.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but it's I know exactly what you mean, but I don't really like the term core stability in 2017. Because everyone uses it. Like everyone, like now, it's become one of those things. I don't know if you guys find this, but you get a client come in, I want to work on core stability. Well, okay, what does that mean? Because everyone just says it now. So I know what Pablo means when he says it, but the ability to control his trunk in a certain position. But yeah, you know, like I just get that all the time and I think, oh, what is that? You know,
so I want to get fit.
Yeah, totally. Well, what is that?
And
yeah.
there's nothing until you actually apply something.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, it would be the capacity to control that core, so you can provide stability to the shoulder.
Totally. Okay. So the trunk needs to be able to control the lumbar spine, the thoracic spine needs to be able to lift, and then the shoulder joint, so glenohumeral joint, needs to go into external rotation. The scapula needs to depress and downwardly rotate. Okay, so there are a lot of mobility things there that we would address if someone couldn't get into that position with the bar. So that's bar setup. And then, now we've got bar set up, so if someone can do that, what's next? We're standing at the top. Where do we want to go?
Down.
Down, right, okay. So now we've got motor control. So what's the right way to go down?
Straight.
Yeah, straight down.
Straight down?
The bar should.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, so when we've got the bar, and it's simple, the bar should stay above midfoot. Why? Yep, perfect. The center of gravity, right? So if I'm, imagine I've got the bar on my shoulders, it's going to stay above there the whole time. So we're going to be able to balance, like Pablo said before, balance. If the bar's over midfoot, we're going to be able to balance the whole time. If I start to go forward, like do more of a good morning, I'm going to have to control that falling forward while I go down. If I start to go back, it's the same thing, like I'm doing a sissy squat, I'm going to have to control that as I go down. So in terms of weight, because remember we always go back to what are we trying to achieve. So we've got someone in a deep squat, now we're going to add load, we want to make them the best they can be. So if that is adding the most amount of weight that's comfortable for them, we don't want them going forward or back, we want them staying balanced, because we're going to give them the best opportunity to lift as much weight as they can and get stronger. Cool? So the bar always stays above midfoot, alright? So if we agree on that, is there a certain sequence of events in the joints that allows that to happen? So can you say that a bit louder, Ray?
Hip break, knee break at the same time.
Nice, Ray.
Say one more time, second one.
She said hip break, knee break.
Hip break, knee break.
Yeah, at the same time. So, so when we squat, and there's, I don't know if there's a current debate about it because I'm not really up with it, but there used to be a lot of debate about it, but it was more about kind of Olympic lifting and powerlifting and that sort of thing, and squat experts out there saying, oh, this is the best way to squat, you've got a knee break, and some people saying you've got a hip break. If we go back to, if we just keep it simple and we say, well, the bar's got to stay above midfoot, and we take an individual, okay, because we've already said individuals are individuals, they might have different lever lengths. The simplest thing I would say is, if you take your individual client and you watch the bar, and the bar path stays straight, and they keep the bar above their midfoot in a back squat, and they happen to hip break first, but their squat looks really good, I'd just run with that. If a different person, they have a little bit of knee break first, but it looks really good at the bottom and they look strong and the sequencing's fine, I would just run with that. I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference with the caliber of athletes we're training in here. You're not training someone that's representing New Zealand at the top of their game, okay? If you were, then you might want to have an opinion on that's going to make them better, okay? So what we mean by hip break is if we've got the bar and I'm set up Okay, the hip break is just going to be, we're standing tall at the top. The hip break is just that, okay? I'm initiating from the hips first. The knee break is the knees going forward first, okay? What Ray is saying is both at the same time, okay? And I would tend to agree with that. You know, if I just think about my hip and knee just moving together, and I'm just trying to keep the bar above my midfoot. For me, that works pretty well. Cool, so I'm just thinking bar above midfoot, I'm bending my hips and knees together. That allows me to keep that nice sort of even movement. That's what I'm going to do, okay? If you might find that someone, they might have too much hip break for whatever reason. Could be from body pump. You know, a lot of people, a lot of body pumpers, they like to do this. So in that case, you might have to cue for that person some more knee break. Like it might be actually cueing a knee break so that you get it even. For some people, they might just, like some people with really flexible ankles, you know, sometimes they just float into this position where their knees come forward. So for that person, you might have to cue more hip break. So this is where it's important not to make statements and not to go, you have to do hip break squats. Because we're training individuals, okay? So I want you guys to be able to look at an individual member and say, yeah, you know what? This person's got great squat potential, but I need to give them cueing more knee break just to get them into the right flow or the right sequence of events to get them into that nice deep squat, okay? So does that make sense? Yeah, because that's really what it is. There's a few other little things that we'll address next time in terms of when we're squatting, there are a lot of issues that happen. So all we're talking about today is that how we set up the bar, what's the basic premise of going down. But you guys will know, you know, what happens, like you would have all seen it. Someone, you know, they kind of squat down and then all of a sudden their pelvis kind of comes under, you know, so they get that big pelvic tuck. What happens if someone's shifting weight to left or right at the bottom? You know, there's a lot of common, knees coming in. You know, there are a lot of things that with the back squat that we haven't even got to yet. We're just really looking at the basics, but that's what I want to address in the next workshop. Is kind of, what do we say? Fighting fires, problem solving, technical adjustments, whatever we want to call it. But you know how we address some of that stuff. So what happens, and this is great for us as PTs, for, you know, making people better, but picking up business, okay? Because if you're upstairs and you see someone squatting and, you know, their right knee's coming in, for example, and you go, well, I know how to help that person. That's good for us as a club, because as a club we can go, right, we've all got the skills to be able to make all our members better, which is what we started with, right? We're here to make people better. But two, you know, then you can go to that person and they might say, oh yeah, sure man. You say, look, hey, I noticed your knee coming in. That's going to increase your risk of injury. It's going to decrease your performance potential. What are you squatting for? And they might say, oh, I've got this goal to be able to squat 100 kilos, you know, and they're at 85 right now. They're at, you know, they're potentially at risk of injuring themselves. And you say, well, look, let me spend an hour with you working on some of this stuff. And that gives you the opportunity to get them on board as a client and make them better and hit their goal, you know, so it's a win-win. So that's what I want to cover next time, is just, you know, we'll probably go upstairs next time. We'll start loading up a little bit. We'll start having a look at some, not necessarily faults, but, you know, things that can be improved. But you know, as far as today goes, I've covered what I wanted to cover. So the second resting position, okay, we want people to be able to sit in that position. As a team of PTs, as a club, you guys will notice a lot of people in the club squatting, just resting in a squat, and I think that's brilliant. I love it when I walk in and I see people doing this. Once they can sit in this position, then we can load, okay? We can make legs stronger. That's what we're doing, legs and trunk, okay? And we all agree that we need to add load to do that. So 3, it's probably, you know, based on what we've talked about, best to use a back squat, because for anyone with, you know, ankle issues or anything like that, it's just the easiest. You don't need that much dorsiflexion to be able to back squat, and you can also get the most load on your back. So then 4, how do we put that load on our back? How do we get it off the rack? How do we put it back on the rack? How does it need to sit on our back? And then 5, the bar needs to stay over midfoot, and it needs to travel down over the midfoot. So that's probably going to be a combination of knee and hip break and just a nice even up and down. That's today, okay? Next time, more. But I think that's pretty good, eh? Yeah. Yeah. Cool, okay? Yeah. All right, okay. Thanks, team. Yeah, so I've heard of joint rhythm. I love it.